Tonight's guest on Smooth Talk Radio, he is an actor, a director, a script writer, a musician, a music producer, and a friend of mine. We're going to be talking about the life of AndyK, so stay tuned in to Smooth Talk Radio.
Hey, Shaun.
Andy, you create a broad range of music. You're making jazz, funk, hip-hop, rock and roll, even electronic music. So before we go any further, why don't you tell us about how it all got started? What was your introduction to music?
Well, I started taking piano lessons when I was 5. My mom enrolled us into a mommy and me piano class, learning how to play on like Yamaha keyboards. And that was my first introduction to actually playing music myself, to the idea that like you could make your own music. And there was always music playing in our house, but that was the first time that I attempted to play. And then soon after, because my mom could tell that I loved it so much, she wasn't that into it, but I loved it, so they bought me my own little tiny like Yamaha keyboard. And then I was off to the races on that thing. And then we got a piano for the house, and I started taking like proper piano lessons. So it was really piano that was the first thing that was my introduction to making music. But my grandfather was a really huge music fan and had a crazy jazz collection and a whole bunch of musical instruments. And although he didn't play, he was really, really into jazz. Particularly, he was way into New Orleans and Dixieland jazz, and he grew up in New York City and went to all the jazz clubs, back in we're talking the 30s and 40s era. And then my dad was raised in New York also in the 50s and 60s, really, and so he was really super into jazz, too. And every Sunday we'd play jazz vinyl in the house. That was just his thing, or like Sunday jazz days. And played a ton of vinyl in the house anyway. Just had a huge record collection, was always playing stuff. But my dad was into, like doo-wop and soul music coming out of New York in like the 50s and 60s. And then I had an older brother, and when you have an older sibling, you're introduced to a lot of cool music also that you might not find on your own. It's like unlocking this whole world. For anybody that's got an older sibling, it's great for music. Not necessarily everything else, but but definitely great for music. And so my brother, he's the one who introduced like hip hop into the household. I remember him playing like Run DMC and LL Cool J, and then like the BC Boys on a family trip that we took to Brooklyn. And so I couldn't help but be really into music in that household. My mom played a little acoustic guitar. My grandfather got me my first guitar at like what was it? It was called a Global. I got it when I was 15 years old, and so just as I was stopping, really wanting to take piano lessons, I really didn't want to do that anymore, he handed me my first electric guitar.
Well, learning a new instrument, the guitar, how did that affect your piano playing? Were you reaching new levels or finding yourself playing a whole new style of music every time you sat down to play a piano?
It made me completely abandon the piano. I abandoned the piano for a long time. And actually, the funny thing is, like, I picked up the guitar at that point. The guitar became my main instrument. But occasionally, I would still write songs on the piano. So sometimes I'll go years without going back to Virginia, to my parents' house. And, you know, anytime I sit down on that piano, something comes out of me. But when he gave me the guitar, I just started, it was another way for me to, like, express myself, and it was another way for me to learn how to write music. And at that point, I was also in high school, and I was writing a lot more poetry. I was writing a ton of poetry, just like, you know, journals and journals of bad high school poetry. And then I started to make friends with people who were musicians. Mm-hmm. And I met this one guy, Mike, my friend Mike, and he was really into writing songs and was always coming up with music. And I don't know how it happened, but one day, you know, he was messing around on something. I think he brought like a banjo over to my house, actually. And so with my poetry, we started making up songs together. And that was the beginnings of my first group.
Out of all of the songs that you have online, do you have any of those old recordings of yourself playing the piano or any of you and the banjo player?
There's nothing really, I don't know, like, my mom must have me playing somewhere, or like my recital pieces. Like, I would play a recital every winter and spring, so she must have some of that stuff recorded. But the first recordings were this band, which, I don't know, he had the banjo, and I had like a jug and a washboard, and I was playing harmonica, and we would mess around. And the first thing that we attempted to do was a goofy jug band where we would do like heavy metal covers with like a jug band. Blotter Otter's Jugular Death Band. The banjo broke, and we started, you know, wanting to play electric guitar and stuff, and then really wanted to do like funk. I really wanted to be a funk singer at that time. So we shortened it to Blotter Otter. And so the Blotter Otter recordings are available around. They're actually the only place that you can find them on my links is at atothek.bandcamp.com. You can find the Blotter Otter on there.
Andy, although you have hundreds of songs across the internet, we've picked a few random tracks to play throughout this episode here on Smooth Talk Radio. And for our listeners, we've added links so that they can go and hear more of your music and see your music videos and things. So our first song that we're going to play of yours tonight is called My Heart and Your Mind by AndyK. Again, that was AndyK with My Heart and Your Mind. Andy, let's go ahead and talk about the transition that you made from Virginia to Hollywood. How did you end up in Los Angeles?
Well, I went to school down in Atlanta at Emory University, and I majored in creative writing down there. I took some music courses. I took like electronic music, and I took history of jazz. So those were two of my favorite courses I took in college. But mainly I was a creative writing major, and I started writing screenplays. And I was a film studies minor, and I started entering the film the film contest or the film showcase every single year. And so I just decided, I was going to go to Hollywood, and I was going to make movies. I was going to write them and direct them and edit them and make the music for them. I wanted to do everything. I wanted to be like a Robert Rodriguez, Quentin Tarantino type.
Mm-hmm. You certainly have the talent for it. So how did your family take the whole idea of you wanting to chase your dreams and move across the country 3,000 miles away from home?
Well, my brother had already moved out to California. My brother was living in Oakland at the time. And my mom didn't like the idea that both of her kids were going to be living 3,000 miles away. But
Sure.
She had remarried at that point, and she had her own life. And, she basically encouraged us to follow our dreams. My brother applied to work at Pixar at one point. He's an incredible cartoonist, even though he didn't get that job. But we were interested in.
Andy, your phone is breaking up pretty bad on your end. If you're walking around or something, let's try to find a comfortable place where we might get a little better reception.
Oh, sorry about that.
You're fine. I just want to make sure that the audience can hear you. So if it keeps getting worse, what we can do is hang up, and we'll give you a call right back from the studio.
Okay. I was walking around. I'll just stay right here in one place. So you missed my whole spiel about basically wanting to come here to direct, like everybody else in Hollywood, right?
It's the entertainment capital of the world.
Yeah. I mean, look, this is the city where people come, or it's one of the cities certainly where people come to try to live out their dreams. And, I tried to do that through movies. Music too. But, it was primarily in terms of a career. I wanted to make my career writing and directing movies. And I figured that I could incorporate music into those, to work in either my own music, or at least it was a chance to put the music I loved, and to give a visual to that music, and the music would certainly influence the writing that I was doing too.
The last time that I was in Hollywood, you were writing a script. Is that script finished yet?
I am still working on said script. It's only about 50 pages. I don't get a lot of time to write, but that's kind of a lie. I just to sit down and dig in and do it. I'm really hoping that over this winter break that I can work on it some more. I have a couple of buddies that I am writing this with, and it's kind of turning into a whole epic saga. So really, it's about just trying to tell this story, and at some point, I will manage to put it all down and tell the whole thing. I have no idea what's going to happen to it. I've written 7 screenplays, and none of them have been made. I wanted to come out here and live in Los Angeles, and I have. I've been out here for 17 years, and I've made a good life for myself, and I continue to write, and I continue to be creative, and I continue to make music, but I don't make a living doing those things at all. If somebody just wants to do the work, put in the work, be creative constantly, I'm fully supportive of those people. I felt like this was the place that I needed to be to try to achieve my dreams, and I needed to go after them, and I needed to live out my dreams here. I thought that this was the only place that I could go and make movies.
You're tuned in to Smooth Talk Radio. We'll be right back with our guest, AndyK. Let's talk a little bit about you first arriving in Los Angeles. Did you know a few people out there, or get a job set up using your degree from Virginia, or did you save up a few bucks, maybe rented an apartment while trying to look for work? How did it all go down for you?
Yeah, basically I had a friend from college who was living out here. I sent all of my stuff, I shipped it to her, and drove out here with another buddy who was living in San Francisco. I got a 3-month apartment in Burbank, and I basically cold called every movie studio and producer until I got a job working as an intern with a stipend. You would be you're just lugging stuff, doing whatever crappy work somebody needs you to do on a set.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about your first job once you got out there?
Basically, my first job was working on this feature as a PA. My first thing was working on this feature that was shooting downtown at night. And it was like some gangster pic called Focus. And my job was basically to keep homeless people from walking through the shot. But it paid about minimum wage, essentially. I worked a lot of gigs like that, like PA gigs or mailroom gigs, or as an intern. I first worked for a producer when I got out here, and worked as his intern. And he kept saying, well, as soon as an actual position opens up, you'll be first in line. And they never went into production on anything, and no actual positions ever opened up. So I learned a lot about pre-production and development and filmmaking from that guy, but it was not a way to make a living. I didn't really start to make a living actually doing anything creative, and I put the creative in air quotes, until I bought my own camera and computer and started hustling up gigs, actually, coming up with my own segments and ideas for segments. And I worked for this online place called HollywoodOnset.com. It was one of the earliest streaming sites. It was before dial-up streaming, essentially. And then I was like, I can shoot and edit segments for myself. So I started my own videography company. But what I wound up doing mostly was wedding videos.
You have quite a few music videos that you've directed online. And in fact, our next clip is a video of yours with Inferno. Brief us about Inferno.
Inferno was one of my students at Community Day School. So he was a student that had been opportunity transferred, because he got in a lot of trouble at his school. So he came to me in my school, and working with those students in a full day classroom. It's like continuation school, but full day. And I was teaching at this point, and so I was his teacher, and there was another student in the class. I had always done sort of music on the side, and would play some of that music for the students. I was recording it and had my computer there, so I would play some of the stuff, and they would be like, oh, make me a beat, record me. And so I started doing that with another student who went by Clash at that time, now goes by Pharaoh Tut. And Inferno saw what we were doing, and he wanted that too, except for he did not know how to rap at all when he started.
Well, let's go ahead and play the next track. It's titled Never Letting Go by Inferno. Be sure to see the whole music video on YouTube/AndyK.
Synthesis.
I know this girl by the name of Mary Jane. Everything she has to give, I'll take it any day. In other words, I can say she's good in every way. To the point she has me high than some purple haze. And there's not a single thing about her that I would change. Cause her attitude is great to the smile on her face. I swear to God you're perfect and I'm still amazed on how fast you live life with no kind of shame. But whatever it is, baby, please don't change. Cause if I don't have you here, I'll go insane. I'm happy where we both stand with no mistake. Cause I love is free to roam like no inmate. When I'm with you, I get the chills after I say. Cause I know I'll fall in love with you more than yesterday. Know you was like dropping a phone with no case. Slowly I'll fall and at the end I'll break. You're the kind of girl I would do a million things for. Right at quit 16, say you're beautiful. All them other girls are mad cause of me you hold. On my word, baby, I'm never letting go. You're the kind of girl I would do a million things for. Right at quit 16, say you're beautiful. All them other girls are mad cause of me you hold. On my word, baby, I'm never letting go. When you say that you hate me, I'ma say that I love you too. Or you say that you don't care, well, that's all that I do, ooh. But other than that, I wouldn't change where I'm at. Cause you know how to cheer me up when you see I'm sad. Or even when I'm mad, you do anything you can to make me laugh. And of course I love that. You even pop the pimples that I got on my back. Not many girls nowadays would do something like that. You're unique in your own way and I like that. When I know others are jealous of us, I laugh. Cause they stay wishing on having on what I have. And that's you, it's sad but true. I'm lucky in every occasion it's you. Cause I don't know where I'd be if it wasn't with you. You're the kind of girl I would do a million things for. Right at quit 16, say you're beautiful. All them other girls are mad cause of me you hold. On my word, baby, I'm never letting go. You're the kind of girl I would do a million things for. Right at quit 16, say you're beautiful. All them other girls are mad cause of me you hold. On my word, baby, I'm never letting go. I'm the kind of dude that your dad don't like. And you're the kind of girl that my mom said the wife. Cause you made it play, you hang up his jersey on sight. And as bad as I was, you made all my wrong right. Believe me when I say you're my one, no right. You're the one above the other ones and that's no lie. The fact that you keep it true makes it beautiful. So I go all out just to be there for you. And to treat you like gum on my shoe ain't cool. Or to cheat, that's something I just can't do. Why bother look for a win when I have you? As my enemy, best friend, and my lover. I even told her no one else is above her. So I hope it shows I'm different from the ones who've done her dirty and foul, wrong and played her out. So I'ma hold you down till God takes me out. You're the kind of girl I would do a million things for. Right at quit 16, say you're beautiful. All them other girls are mad cause of me you hold. On my word, baby, I'm never letting go. You're the kind of girl I would do a million things for. Right at quit 16, say you're beautiful. All them other girls are mad cause of me you hold. On my word, baby, I'm never letting go.
His first ever recording was me recording him in the classroom. Clash was really, really raw at that point too. And those guys, have now been doing it. This is already 10, 12 years ago. So those guys have been doing it, for a decade now and have gotten really good.
I enjoyed watching the music video. Did you make that beat as well?
That one I directed, but I didn't actually have anything to do with the music there. Make That Ass Clap, I'm the one who made the beat and recorded that one.
we'll play that track here right now. This is Pharaoh Tut and AndyK performing the song Make That Ass Clap. And we have a little audio of their acting. So it's the intro to the music video. Let's check it out.
Ladies first. Andy, I need to talk to you.
Fuck that shit, man. I got nothing to say to you. Except for this. You owe me my money. You better give me my money by the end of the week or get the fuck out of this place. What you talking about? Yo, man, get your hands off me. Get off me. I'm gonna come back here and I'm gonna fuck you up. I don't give a fuck. I'm gonna fuck you. You give me my money or you gonna be sorry.
I don't give a fuck.
Kid, what?
Hello?
Hi, is Sandy here?
Who's asking?
Girl, some friends.
Will be my guest.
Make that ass clap, girl. Make that ass clap, girl. Make that ass clap once. Make that ass clap once. Make that ass clap once. Make that ass clap blunts. Sell. Yep. Shake down. Shake down. Shake down. Make that ass clap, girl. Make that ass clap, girl. One time, make that ass clap. Make that ass clap, yeah, make that ass clap. 2 times, make that ass clap. Make that ass clap, make that ass clap. 3 times, 4 times. 3 times, 4 times. It's showtime. This is how I do when I release your mind. On mine, on down. Come to the city, we don't even have to clown. I see you looking like a clown. Never found when it goes down. All up in your town, that's brown. All up in your team, so smooth. Niggas like a money machine. Don't you know I get that like a ton of green. Rolling in that endo, blunt. Niggas don't know. Super kush stunt. Exotic strands, I'm smoking. That's what it is, I'm not even provoking. I'm just like, get on my level. You high off some shit, playing with a little bit. Make 'em bounce, baby. Make 'em bounce, baby. Make 'em shake, baby. Make 'em shake. Make that ass clap. Make that ass clap. 1 time, 2 time. Make that ass clap. 3 time, 4 time. Make that ass clap. Make that ass clap. Make that ass clap. 1 time, 2 time. Make that ass clap.
Be sure to see this whole music video and others on one of the links that we have posted. Andy, throughout this whole time of creating music and learning other music, what number one band do you lean back on or look for when you need to get inspiration and be so diverse? What band would you say influences you forever?
Man, that's a really hard question to answer, and I probably have a really, cheesy answer to that, but it would probably be the Beatles. My parents were both huge Beatles fans. It was one of the main things that maybe brought them together and that they had in common. Their song was a Beatles song here, there, and everywhere, and they both loved to play the Beatles. And I think the production on Beatles songs, the songwriting, the fact that they were all individual musicians in the group, just all the ground that they broke in, going away from the traditional songwriting. They were writing the songs themselves. That was really the first time that had been done outside of Bob Dylan. The fact that they made Sgt. Pepper on a 4-track, basically, So I would have to say the Beatles. Although my first and foremost love is all classic rock. So classic rock is really my fundamental influence of anything. So Beatles, Jimi Hendrix, Stones, Pink Floyd, Grateful Dead, Doors, all of that stuff was what what I grew up listening to and in music. I think that the psychedelic nature of that music, it's really about mind expansion, and it's really about, expanding your mind musically and hearing what's possible.
When you were working with your students, Pharaoh Tut or Inferno, were they introducing you to newer music and having a big influence on your ongoing progress of creating music?
Yeah, I mean, I think that those guys were younger, and they were into different kinds of hip hop and different sounds, and so they kept me much more connected to what was going on in modern hip hop. The stuff that was coming out just during that time.
When you first arrived in LA and you're working as a production assistant and filming wedding videos and things and trying to push out your artistic part of the film industry, when did you actually find time to write your music?
Well, I mean, I was always recording music, starting with the Blotter Otter album that I talked about, which we recorded in, I think the summer of 96, which was when that was recorded. And during that winter time, I come back and I bought turntables, and home recording was getting a lot better. I'd had my own Tascam 4-track, and so I was recording early stuff of my own on the 4-track. And so ever since then, I mean, I would record 2, 3, 4 solo albums every single year. So I was always recording music after that point.
Referring to recording-wise, analog or digital, which do you prefer?
Digital. I mean, although it was fun to record on a 4-track, it was fun to just be able to record at all. And there's something to the tape hiss and everything. It's got its own, sort of sound that's interesting and that I can appreciate. It's so much easier to record now. Just recording on my computer today is a million times easier and better than it was recording on this 4-track. Maybe a little bit more complex in terms of the technology that you have to learn and are using. But I record for the most part using GarageBand. So that technology is seriously easy for just about anybody to do. And everybody who likes music should do it. If you like making music, you should be, and you have a computer, record. I mean, that was the thing. Those kids, Pharaoh Tut and Inferno, they didn't have access to a computer. The only place that they had access to a computer and mic was at school. Once they got access to their own computers and mics, they didn't necessarily need me, that we continue to record together because I think, they like my beats and they like doing it, but they do their own stuff, and what they do is great.
To get on a deeper note, Andy, I saw a post that you posted a while back about your father's passing. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
It's still a huge thing for me. It's still a big part of my life. His absence. It was during my junior year of high school. He had brain cancer, and it was one of the most difficult things I've ever been through. He was sick for 3 years. Watching somebody, go from cancer is an awful experience. Seeing the strength that he had to fight it, and the even with all the indignities of life and the things being taken away from him, he still suffered through that and fought through that with incredible dignity. It taught me, one of the most important lessons that I'll ever learn. My dad was super funky. You know, my dad has a funky sensibility, and my dad had soul. To put it, you know, in the only term that I can basically come up with for that. I mean, he was a white Jewish guy from Brooklyn, but he had an incredible amount of soul. And I think a good amount of that went into me, too. I'd like to think that the music that I make is pretty soulful. And I think that soulfulness and that funkiness in large part comes from him. But, you know, I definitely took the pain of his death, and the only thing that I could do was channel that into my writing and into my music. And that's what I did at the time when I was 17. That's when I really started making music and writing in earnest, because I was feeling, you know, overwhelming emotions and had no idea what to do with those emotions. And music at that time really saved my life.
And we're back. Andy, there are a lot of conspiracy theories and a huge controversy about the only way to make it rich and famous is to sell your soul to the devil or join secret societies like the Illuminati. What do you feel about that? Being out there in Los Angeles, do you see things like that going on?
I mean, are there secret groups, you know, of people with incredible amounts of power who control a large part of the entertainment industry and make decisions, you know, that affect the entertainment world? Like, yeah, I believe that. I don't know, you know, that they refer to those groups as the Illuminati or anything like that. I don't know how they necessarily refer to themselves. There are small groups of people with incredible amounts of power who control these industries.
Well, I would have to agree with you, Andy. I mean, just in my humble opinion, watching those videos, there seems to be a little bit of truth in there. Now, have you ever been approached by a record producer and offered a record contract or any kind of movie deal since you've been out there in Hollywood?
No, I've never been in that position. And, you know, I guess that's a good problem to have if you're in that position. You know, the thing about my artistic career is that, yeah, I've always had full control over it. I've never had to make any sacrifices in order to get fame or money or popularity. Certainly the fame part of it has never had any allure for me. Yes, the money would be nice, but I'm doing okay as is. I don't, you know, there aren't a lot of people making a ton of money from music right now anyway. It's certainly hard to sell records out there, that's for sure. And I don't play live a whole lot. But I'd like to get a larger audience for my music. I'd like to know that it's out there being heard, but it would be hard for me to have to sacrifice, you know, control over the music in order to do that. I make my music first and foremost for myself. I like to listen to it, but I'm my number one fan. I love me the hell out of some AndyK. You know, I certainly get sick of it real fast, and then, you know, I have to make more and more to keep myself entertained. Want to listen to music that I've been working on for a while. You hear it over and over and over and over again, and then, you know, you just burn out on it. Sometimes you burn out on it forever. But yeah, I mean, I would love to make, like I said before, I love the Beatles. You know, I would love to make something lasting, something catching, something that was popular. I don't think that popular music has to be bad. Those two things, you know, I think quite the contrary. I love popular music. I don't think that the music being popular, that necessarily equates to bad. Sometimes it really does. And sometimes, the music people start copying each other and it all starts to sound alike and homogenous. I certainly don't want, music to sound homogenous because I love the diversity of music and I love listening to all different kinds. But I would love to be able to create music that really connected with a broad audience. I don't know if I've done any of that. I don't know if my music does. It hasn't connected to a broad audience, so there must be something about it that isn't, as catchy as I would like.
What's bringing you to that conclusion, that your music is not being heard and being spread around? I
see the number of listens that I get on Spotify or on SoundCloud. I see my sales or a number of plays, and there aren't as many as I would like.
There's a true story about a struggling artist, Vincent van Gogh. He was a painter. Every day he would paint. His whole life was about painting. He took his life, unfortunately, at a young age. Not too long ago, Japan just held an auction with one of his paintings that sold for over $5 million. I mean, it's an incredible thought to think that you can go your whole life not seeing any success, and here we are hundreds of years later, still talking about his art.
I know I get plays all over the world. I see things, pop up in my plays. I can track where they come from, and it's playing in, 50 different countries. I don't know who those people are that are listening to it in other places. I have no idea. I'm not getting a ton of feedback from it, and the Van Gogh story, it's incredibly inspirational and encouraging. The idea that someday, it gets to people that will appreciate it. Mm-hmm. And I really hope that, my music does. That it gets to people that enjoy it and appreciate it and it makes their lives better. Like I said, I make it first and foremost for myself. I enjoy it. I enjoy the process of doing it. So that other stuff isn't that important to me, but it would be nice. It would be validating. It would make me feel good to know those things for a fact, to get that kind of feedback. Why isn't that the case? I don't know. It's possibly because I work as a teacher rather than as a musician or as a filmmaker, so I've never really gone for it 100%. I don't play a lot out, and I don't know. I have a hard time playing in front of people, and I don't even know necessarily always how to go about doing it. I like to do singular sort of statement shows. So when I do it, it makes a statement. When I do it, I was going to do one for my 40th birthday, but it kind of fell apart. But that's kind of why I don't do a lot of press. This is the lone press that I'm doing for my albums this year or so far, and it feels great to do it. I'm loving it. Thank you for having me on your show, Shaun. Thank you for doing that, and thank you for being my friend and for playing music with me. I've loved making music with you. I'm really sad that you haven't been out in Los Angeles for such a long time for us to keep doing that. And I would love to collaborate on something long distance when we get a chance.
That would be a lot of fun. Andy, we're going to take a quick break, and when we get back, we'll talk a little bit about R.J. Ward. Stay tuned on Smooth Talk Radio. I had the privilege of being a legal assistant for a pretty big attorney back in his day, with famous clients such as Dr. Dre, the late wrestler, China, and many others. I introduced RJ and Andy, and together they made this song right here called Ride It Like You Stole It.
Whose motorcycle is this?
It's a chopper, baby.
Whose chopper is this? Where did you get this motorcycle?
It's not a motorcycle, baby. It's a chopper. Come on, let's go.
Hello, ladies. I'm here to tell you a little story. It's about a love affair I had. In a way, I still have it. And comb my hair, tuck my shirt in, take out my bike. That's right. The song is called Ride It Like You Stole It. Cause that's what that man did, he stole my bike. Take a man's bike, you better go far. Cause ladies, I'm here to tell you, that bike ain't like no car. That's a Harley Davidson. I like to ride. So I told that boy, ride it, boy. Ride it like you stole it. Ride it hard. Ride it hard. Oh yeah, ladies, now you know what I'm saying. Come on now, give me some help. Oh yeah. I get on that bike. I turn the key. Fire some life into that girl. Oh yeah. Now she's purring like a kitten. Pipes getting warm. I'm starting to open the throttle up.
That's recorded on my computer at home. I started that out with a beat on iMachine on my old iPad, put it into GarageBand, recorded Jeff over at that condo of his on the west side, in just like an empty room in that condo. That's the first time. That was the first thing that we ever recorded together. That was the first time that we sat to try to record anything, and that's what came out of it. And he plays harmonica on that too. He's quite an accomplished harmonica player. There's a very small amount of harmonica on there, but he can blast when he wants to. Then we had a little bit of drum playing from Damn the Danimal all the way from New York City.
You guys recorded and finished that album in 2016, right?
I guess we started out probably in 2015 with you and me and Jeff jamming together and doing the first few songs. And then you remember Paul came out, Paul Bosey, and started adding some guitar and playing some stuff too. And then his brother Mihilo came out and he plays on a little bit on a few tracks also.
Given that you've worked with a lot of different people and created a lot of different songs just on your own, how many albums have you actually made so far?
I really don't know the definitive number offhand, but it's somewhere between like 40 and 50 albums.
Once you're through writing your script, is that going to be your main focus, just focusing on the script and getting it out there versus the music?
No, I mean, I think the music gets to the most people. I would love to think that the script eventually gets made and becomes either a movie or a miniseries. But, you know, I've been in Hollywood, like I said, a long time, 17 years. It's been really hard to get anything like actually made movie and TV wise. I made one mockumentary called Hollywood Headshots that you can also find on YouTube. Other than that, I haven't really been able to produce a lot of my writing, and I would love for that to happen, but I just don't. I don't know. I don't see it. I'm writing for the sake of writing because I love to do it and I want the story to get told. But I don't have a ton of hopes of it ever, like, physically making it to celluloid and people seeing it.
Out of all of the albums that you've recorded over the years, what is your favorite album that you've made, AndyK style?
I think that, we made, I made some compilation albums this year, so that's not really fair. But I would say if you want to really get the full, experience of my music, if you listen to Bulging Disc Volume 1 and 2 and iMachine, then you get, you get the sound of essentially 25 albums by doing that. So that's a cheat. I would say of my favorite, my favorite is probably the Singularity album, the album that I made with John P. Hastings a few years ago. It's just self-titled The Singularity. It's black with a white Singularity insignia on it. That album took us about 2 years to make. And we really, really, really took our time with the tracks on that one. So that's the one that I've put the most time into. Of the AndyK solo albums, it's really hard to say. Probably Hamburger Guitar is my favorite. At a different time, any number of albums could possibly be my favorite. Usually my favorite is whatever album I'm currently working on, which right now I'm working on an album called Crisis Suite. You can hear that album in progress on SoundCloud. My SoundCloud is Keiler. I'm still continuing to work on the album. I'll post songs. Sometimes they're not even finished, they're not finished versions of the songs, but I post them on SoundCloud, try to get some immediate feedback on what people are thinking about it, what people like about it, and just, so people can kind of hear my process.
As you continue on in your occupation of being a teacher, are you currently working with any of your students now?
Yeah, I just discovered a new student of mine that raps. I work at adult school now, so he's still a teenager. He's closer to being an adult than maybe Pharaoh Tutter and Inferno were when I first met them. But this guy, Young SK, he's something else from Inglewood, and he's putting out tracks under Young SK, and we've been recording some stuff together. We did a tiny little mixtape that's on SoundCloud. I plan on putting out kind of all the tracks that we recorded this year in January, probably. And we continue to record together, and he's great. And he's also, he's really into trapping, the trap and rap. So, again, that keeps me into a lot of stuff that's current. He tipped me off to a lot of new producers and rappers that are out there right now that I probably never would have heard otherwise. Mm-hmm. So it's been great working with him, and I hope to continue working with SK quite a bit.
You just had a daughter a couple years back. I think she's 2.5 now. Given that you're a married man, a father now, a teacher, and writing your script, how do you find time to record your music nowadays?
I know. I was making music when you called. Anytime I usually have a spare moment. Yesterday while she was napping, I was making beats, and then she got up and she was watching some TV, and I was sitting next to her on the couch continuing to make those beats. You know, when my wife goes out with her friends, sometimes I'll stay home at night, and then after the baby falls asleep, you know, I'll start making some music. And even this year, I put out an EP, and those songs are, you know, about and dedicated to my daughter. It's an AndyK album, Dare Bear. It has my daughter on the cover, and she likes the song Uh-Oh. That's her favorite. They're all made up of things that she said, or that she was saying when she first started to acquire language.
What a thrill that's going to be when she gets older and goes back to hear your music and the music that she liked and wanted you to play over and over as a young child. I mean, what a gift that is.
I hope so. I hope, you know, I hope that she likes that, and I hope that it's something that she'll rediscover. And it was one of the great joys of my life when she would start requesting my songs. Like, she was like, Uh-Oh, and she would have me play Uh-Oh over and over and over and over again for her. And I just love that, you know, the fact that she wants to hear my song over and over again. It's a real thrill.
Now, before we wrap it up, Andy, is there a song, a particular song that you would like to play of yours for the audience to hear tonight?
Okay. Yeah, I can get something set up to play for you. There's a song on iMachine that I like called Moody Love. That's just a great uplifting song, an uplifting sample, and it makes me happy every time I hear this song. That one was while I was working at Fusion, and I was getting to learn their studio, and that's one that I actually made at school on a different program. I actually made that on Ableton. So it was one of my first explorations with Ableton, even though the rest of that album is called iMachine because I made it on iMachine.
Are there any upcoming shows that you want to tell the viewers about?
I mean, I have a hard time of just going up there and being like, hey, I'm AndyK, now listen to me, and playing shows and doing it just as AndyK. Mostly I make beats in my bedroom, and, I could get up there and rap along to my beats, but I don't know how entertaining that would be for anybody. I think people much prefer, to see like a music group, and to see a real performance. So I was really hoping that, Junior Blind was going to do that, and I felt like we were getting close to doing that when Paul and Mihilo decided to move back home to New Jersey. So, Jeff and I were still trying to find the right guys and maybe play out, but it gets harder and harder. It was really hard on my family, like you said before, even when we were doing the Junior Blind thing, just to play out once a week was really difficult to find the time to do that for a few hours once a week.
As we wrap this episode of Smooth Talk Radio up, Andy, is there any advice that you would like to give the listeners who want to travel from wherever they might be to Hollywood and try to make it in the film or in the music industry? Is there any advice that you would like to leave them with tonight?
Well, number one, I don't think you have to come out to LA anymore to, quote unquote make it. I think you can do it from anywhere. At the time when I came out in the late 90s, there were still studios, whether it were movie studios or recording studios, that were controlling the entertainment industry, and they were also controlling the release of these things. With the rise of YouTube and the internet, SoundCloud and Facebook, and all the different ways that you can get your art out there, you don't need to come out here to like some gatekeeper or whatever for them to dub you, the next big thing and say you're good and give you that validation and put your stuff out. No matter where you are, they'll come find you. If your stuff is that good and it finds an audience, other people are going to come looking for you to be attached to what you're doing. So the main advice that I would say is just keep trying to be better as an artist. Keep making the best stuff that you can make. Keep doing what you do. You're the only one that can do what you do. You're a unique voice. You're your voice. So just do that the best that you can, wherever and however you can, and then don't be scared to put it out there. The motivation, it can't be external. It has to be intrinsic. It has to be something inside of you that wants to create. And, you actually get joy from the process of it. You're not looking at some, end result, and, you're not just looking toward the finished product. You actually enjoy the process and you enjoy what you're doing. Because if you don't, it's going to be really hard to spend hours and hours and hours and hours working on that thing that you're going to be working on and doing it over and over again. I mean, it is work, but you have to have joy in the work and in the process, not just the finished product. I mean, most of the time, the finished product, by the time I get to the finish line, I don't want to see or hear or have anything to do with that thing for another 10 years. So if you're just waiting for the finished product and excited about that, I think that's the wrong way to find your motivation. But if you love what you do, and you love doing it, then you're going to do it for fun. You got to do it because that's the most fun thing that you could be doing with your time.
That was very well put, Andy. We're going to have to wrap it up. I hope the audience got to know you a little bit better as a person and goes and checks all of the links out that we have of yours. And we like to thank you for being a part of our show tonight and hope to have you as a guest again soon.
Thanks, Shaun. We'll do. Thank you again for having me on. It was quite a pleasure to do this. I really enjoy it. As much as I told you before, I hate the sound of my own voice. And I gotta say, next time, or at least one of the times down the road, I hope to be able to interview you about, your creative life and your creative projects. We spent all this time talking about me. I really like to talk about some of the things that you've done and what you're working on.
Well, folks, that wraps up this episode of Smooth Talk Radio. Be sure to click on the links that we've provided to hear more of AndyK. A special thanks goes out to our guest, Andy Keiler, Chris Coxon, Chris and Nikki Fry, and all of the other members that helped put this together.
Until the next episode.
Holidays, and I hope you have a beautiful and productive 2017.
When I can. At the tone, please record your message. When you have finished recording, you may hang up or press 1 for more options.